So I got to experience the dark retreat and then came out and went straight into the Mexican Temazcal. It was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had.
What I like about this, especially for people that don't want to do substances, they don't want to do ayahuasca, this is a very safe alternative.
I've tried all of the psychedelics, and the thing that I found with each one of those, the integration was much harder.
So then let me ask you, what are some perceived truths that we accept that you realized are completely false?
Many times, we think we can't go any longer, and all that is our voice that wants us to remain the same or mediocre. And it's at that moment that all of a sudden you realize you can handle so much more.
You mentioned your brain starts producing DMT.
Oh man.
All right, welcome to today's episode of Real Influence. My name is Joey Vaillancourt, and I'm here with a good friend, Matthew Stafford. You've been on the show before, but welcome back. How are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me again.
I'm so excited you're willing to come back. Last time we spoke, you did a dark retreat. I was super intrigued. I wanted to share that experience through your experience of what happened, and we had a great conversation. And then, lo and behold, you say that I'm going to go do another one because one wasn't enough. So today, though, before we get into that, who are you? What are you spending your days working at? And what are you passionate about?
Oh, great question. I'm Matthew Stafford, and I would say I'm figuring out how to work in my zone of genius more often instead of being task driven. As the business owner of a couple of different businesses, you tend to think that more is better or busy is productive. And by going into the dark, those two different times, I've just realized how much power and leverage there is in silence. And that's not busy work. It's learning how to strategically think. And as we were talking before we started recording, I'm literally reading a book right now that's talking about how to use AI as a strategic thinking partner that just has my mind buzzing.
It's interesting that a lot of people think that more is more. If I get a bit more done, if I could only step a bit later, if I could extract a bit more from my day, then it would all fall into place. But you're kind of going the opposite route, and it's a shared experience, which is why I resonate so deeply with what you're going through. Even though we have our separate experiences, I'm very much now going inward versus going outward. Focus on meditation quite a bit. And one of my favorite things is just to meditate longer. I love peacefulness and I love silence now more than ever. But what that's transitioned to is actually more success in the outer world, more productivity, more relaxation, more resonance with people and energetic frequency, that people within my vicinity are able to absorb that and be more productive and more relaxed through me changing my internal. And I'm just excited for the people to experience this stuff. And for those of you who haven't listened to the other episode, and Matthew went in, I think it was 5 days, right? Complete darkness.
Yeah.
The complete darkness, which is crazy because I told you about my childhood fear of being in the dark, which is, I don't know if I could actually do this experience. So I'm still working up the courage to go, and I'm letting you, experiment with that. But, before we get into the second round, which is probably in itself very different than the first round, I can imagine. What were you experiencing even before the first time you did this? Emotionally, physically, mentally? What was going on in your life that you felt called to this when you saw this opportunity come up?
I've been exploring these different experiences for the last 4 or 5 years. And each time, each one of them gives you a different gift. And I had witnessed 2 other people who did the dark retreats. And over the following 12 months, I just noticed huge changes in them. And so from that experience, I thought, yeah, there's something to this. I would be very interested in it. And I also am a firm believer that our inner world creates our outer world. And if you think about it, the dark experience is 100% your inner world. There is no outer experience when you're in the dark and you can't see anything. It's void of distraction and chaos. So the goal is you go inward and you get to explore for what feels like forever, especially the second experience, which I'll share more about because you and I haven't talked about it at all yet. I'll share more about that. But yeah, I just understood that in order for my outer world to improve, I needed to improve my inner.
Got it. Yeah. And I purposefully didn't want to hear. And even I know you posted a few things and I was like, I don't want to like come into this interview with like a bias. I really wanted to have just an open, like, I'm interested, I'm curious. I want to ask the questions without knowing exactly what you went through. And I don't know if you shared like the tactical of what it was, but I think it was more the experience of what you're going through during the sessions and while you're in the dark. So how many days did you do this time?
I was a little over, let's see, it was about 110 hours. So 4.5 days.
Okay.
Yeah. A little shorter than the first one.
Oh, you went shorter this time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, why was that?
I just felt complete. It wasn't, I had the opportunity to come out on Thursday or Friday or Saturday because my stay was through Sunday and leaving on Monday. And at the end of the 4 days, I felt complete. And I was really glad when I came out because when I came out, the host lady asked me to go to a Mexican Temazcal that evening. And that was another huge experience in itself. So I got to experience the dark retreat and felt complete and then came out and went straight into the Mexican Temazcal about 8 to 10 hours later. And it was intense.
Interesting. Okay. That gives me a new outlook because I thought you were like, I'm going to stay longer, but you actually got enough. And I think, when you have enough and what you're trying to gain is necessarily like, oh, I stayed for the 7 days. It's like, what do I need from this? And it sounds like you got that even shorter.
Yeah, there's no ego for me. It wasn't about like, oh, how long can I suffer? The second one was no suffering. It was a radically different experience than my first one. And I just felt good and complete. And I'll share more of the details as we get going. And like I said, I'm really glad I came out when I did. It was almost meant to be because of that other experience that I got to go through that I wouldn't have if I waited another day.
So for those people who didn't listen to the first episode, first time they've ever heard of a dark retreat, maybe just give them the elevator pitch of what exactly it is.
Yeah, it's a one-room building that has a bed and a bench and an area that you can eat your food, which is in the dark. And then there's a doorway to a bathroom and shower, kitchen, or not kitchen sink, bathroom sink, and then a couple jugs of water so that you have what you need to survive. But there's no light at all. So it doesn't matter. You can have your hand right in front of your face. You can't see anything at all. So the entire experience is in the dark.
No devices, no anything.
No, nothing. Yeah.
Can you hear anything?
The first time I could hear a rooster, which would crow in the morning and at night. So I kind of had a little bit of a reference. And you could hear like people in the little village rustling around and stuff, but no like audible talking. And the second experience that I had, there was no rooster, no noise from the village, no anything. So it was completely silent and dark.
Okay. I was going to say, it's like your wake up call is a rooster. It's like, okay, I know what time it is now.
Yeah. And when we get into the first day, I'll share how it all transpired.
Yeah. So for those of you listening, if you want to go deeper on the first experience, we have the other episode. Today is really the piggyback though, because when you experience something once, you're really coming into it a little bit blind, like you don't know what to expect and you have a lot of learnings. What I've found is doing something for the second or third time, you're able to come into it with more intention because you've experienced it and you're really setting an intention for, hey, now I can navigate this a little bit. Even you had a couple like tactical takeaways for the next time you're going to do this in terms of like maybe your journaling or like maybe not fasting and things like that you experimented the first time. So coming into it with a bit of new experience and wisdom is powerful. So walk us through, like, what was the second time like, and break it down by the day or just the whole experience, wherever you want to start.
Yeah. The first time I fasted 71 hours, the final 70 plus hours of the experience. And through that, it created a super intense day 5 and was really pretty rough to handle because your brain starts producing DMT and then fasting, there's nothing for your body to digest or to distract itself. And so just it kept getting stronger and stronger. And I didn't want to repeat that the second one because I didn't think it was necessary. I'm glad I went through it the first time, but the second time I was like, yeah, I don't need that. And so I did agree to fast, and I told her I would just let her know when I would eat. And so the first night I went to sleep, and the way you fall asleep in there is just crazy. Like, cause the absolute darkness is, your body just shuts down and starts producing melatonin, and away you go. And the first experience, I woke up and she said, you'll sleep a little longer than normal. And so in my head, I thought I woke up, 5 a.m., 8 a.m., maybe 9 a.m. Later on, I found out it was like closer to 2 p.m., which is 3 hours behind where I'm at. So I'd slept till almost 5 p.m., my normal time, which is crazy for me. I just don't sleep in. This time when I went to sleep, woke up, and it was dead silent. I didn't hear anything. And so I thought, oh, I'm awake earlier than everybody else, and figured that, everybody would just start waking up and I would hear the little village or people around in the compound that I was in. But I never heard anything, didn't hear the rooster. And after a few hours, I was like, oh, this is really strange. There's no noise at all. And that day just kept extending and extending. It felt like it was longer than my entire first retreat all by itself. And so eventually I got tired, but it felt like I had been awake for days, and went to sleep. The next morning I woke up still silent. So I wrote on the notepad, I would take some fruit, and she would chop up fruit, put it in like a Tupperware dish and put it back through the food chute. So I put that note in the little hopper, and when she checked it, she got me some fruit and brought it back down and put it in, and I ate it. And so that kind of like re-anchored me to outside. Where the first one, I went straight in, no noise, no sound, no anything. Felt like 30, 40 hours. And it was just, it's the first time I've ever experienced where time felt like it had no time and no resistance to or needing to do anything. And then the third day, because I didn't tell her I wanted food again, she just assumed that I wasn't going to eat. So I had thought, like, once I told her, she would keep bringing it. But so I ended up fasting the third day, and it did the same thing again. It was really, really long. And I was like, oh, wow, this is very interesting. When I have no relation to anything outside, it feels like I have this, it really felt like quantum time. It still feels a little funny talking about it, but it reminds me of where Joe Dispenza says there's no time, no place, no anything. And that's really what it felt like to me, that I had the freedom for hours and hours and hours to just go over stuff and analyze and see my stories. And then the fourth day was equally as long. And I was like, yeah, I feel complete. It felt like I had done a couple 100 hours of deep work in the 3 days. And so I wrote on the note, I feel complete. I'll come out tomorrow morning. And so the next morning, she came, knocked on the door, and I was ready to come out, and I was wearing an eye mask, and she was going to put me onto a quad and drive me down to the beach so that I could, come back to the light down on the beach with the sunrise. And when I was getting on the quad, I heard the rooster, and I was like, oh, very interesting. I said, I have something to tell you. And she goes, it was really long, wasn't it? And I said, what do you mean? And she goes, well, when you fast, I fast. And when you eat, I eat. And so I can kind of feel like what the experience, or it feels like energetically, I understand what you're going through. And she said it felt really, really long. And I'm like, yeah, when I tell you the story, it was like hundreds of hours of, it just felt like I had been there a month. It literally felt like I'd been there a month, and time didn't matter. And which I've never experienced that in my life. I'm very time, sensitive and conscious, and everything's based off of my calendar and all this other stuff. And it literally didn't matter anymore. I wasn't stressed about it, didn't think about it even twice. But then when I heard the rooster, I said to her, "Oh, I thought the rooster was gone. I never heard it." And she goes, "No, it's been here the whole time. Like it crows every morning and every night." I'm like, wow. So now I really do feel like I was in that room that whole time, but it was in a different place because there was no sound, no time, no anything. And so it was radically different than my first experience. And we went down to the beach and I watched the sunrise, and it took about 3 or 4 minutes of just like reacclimating to it. And then all of a sudden, just like emotion, like just started crying, and it wasn't sad at all. It was just like releasing of just all the stuff that I processed. And yeah, it was a really actually very beautiful experience. And then we went back up, and I used the next 2 days I stayed off all of my communication because everybody knew I was gone the entire week. So I didn't use it as an opportunity to get back on. I literally stayed off of it and just kind of journaled and processed things with the light on so that I could document as much of it as possible.
Wow. There was so many things. I was like, I want to take notes, but I also want to be just tuned in right now. So I'll let my memory guide me on what you just said, because there was a lot of things that came up. The first question I had was, you mentioned like your brain starts producing DMT. So first off, for anybody who doesn't know what DMT is, if you want to take them through exactly what that is. And also, did you experience like visuals, even in the dark state? Like, were you seeing things, and were you kind of like downloading things from that experience when it was kicking in?
Yeah, the second one, it was never strong. Like the first one, it got really strong to where it was like a 21-hour session, or it felt like, I have no idea. That's what it seemed like, but it felt like all but 3 or 4 hours of the day was just this total hallucination. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't get comfortable. It was really pretty intense. That was the first experience. The second one, the worst it ever got was like little flickers, and there might have been like a 10-minute session, and that was it. So I didn't really have the same experience, but essentially what your brain produces DMT. I don't remember the exact name of the chemical, but it produces like these hallucinations. It's a psychedelic experience, and your brain does it naturally because of the dark. So the second one, it was very mild and was never an issue like the first time.
Whenever you're going into this, I mean, the first time must have been different than the second time, but I imagine that the second time, because you knew what the experience was going to be, you might have went in with a different intention. But how did you prepare to go into the dark for this amount of time? Obviously, like, hey guys, I'm off the books this week, can't book anything. But like after that, like, are you setting intentions? Are you journaling? Are you doing anything strategically to get yourself prepared before you go in?
I expected the second one to be similar to the first one. I was pleasantly surprised that they were two radically different experiences. The first one, the first 2 days was really a struggle and a detox from distraction, like the devices and all of that stuff. The second time when I went in, I literally went from the moment I woke up. I had no issue with any of that. It was like I went straight into that place where time didn't matter and I could go anywhere. And there was actually not even triggers or like the first experience where I would feel the sensations and go through that. It was more of like this, I was the observer instead of the person experiencing it. And so I was observing all the things that I thought and worked through, and clearly it was processing in my body because of, the different things that I experienced afterwards. But yeah, it was so radically different that it wasn't what I prepared for. I thought that there would be some of that same stuff, and yeah, there's none of it. My body literally said, this is where we're at. And I would describe it as full surrender. I wasn't trying to manipulate the situation. I wasn't trying to figure anything out. I was just like there for the experience. And I think that me being able to be the observer rather than the experiencer allowed me to just totally released from the outside world.
Okay. So you did the opposite. Like you didn't set an intention of, I need to solve this one thing that's been going on in my life, or I need to find this one answer. You just went in with full surrender. Whatever happens, happens. And I'm just going to be in that moment.
Yeah. My thought process going in, I thought it was going to be more intense and it was going to be much harder than the first time, because I just felt like, oh, that's what happened. Now this time I'll be less fearful of the experience, and I know what to expect. So my goal is to just like fully surrender and experience whatever comes up. And it gave me the exact opposite experience of, clearly the first time I was resisting and struggling. The second time there was zero struggle and zero resistance.
Interesting. So then let me ask you some highs and lows. When you're in these dark rooms and, you're just with your thoughts for a long time, like you have a lot of time to think and analyze all these things you've probably been putting off because you're distracting or whatever the case is. You just haven't had time. Did you notice you got to the end of your thoughts at some point? And then what did you experience as far as like blissful joys, but then really deep lows, if any? Like, I'm just wondering, like, how much on the spectrum did you calibrate between?
That's what was so different about this second experience, because the first one, it was extreme highs and lows, extreme, like to what I would consider the far edge of each spectrum. And this particular one, it literally didn't have any of that. It was almost like I was watching a movie of myself going through these experiences. And I was non-judgmental and just literally observing. And I got a lot of benefit from that, because it's so much different when it's in your head and you think you're experiencing it than when you're the observer. Mm. And so this one, there was never those highs and lows and like super. There's definitely quite a few highs. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I get to go around and like their time doesn't matter. And okay, I kept thinking like eventually I'm gonna get tired. And that's something I hadn't mentioned. I stayed up for it was almost 70 hours is what it ended up being. I only slept the Sunday night when I got there. And then I experienced Monday, went to sleep. And when I woke up, I never went back to sleep. So, and I wasn't tired. In fact, I said that to the host when I got out. I said, yeah, the last time I slept was the day after Sunday. So, however long that was, I said, when you brought me food, was it on Tuesday? And she goes, yep, it was Tuesday around noon. And I said, okay, cool. So then essentially I had never went back to sleep. And I thought in my head, I should be tired, but I was not tired at all. And she asked me, she said, oh, I'm really glad you came out today, because on Thursdays I go to this Temazcal, which is a sweat lodge. And she goes, it's basically like they kind of liken it to a death and a rebirth. You go in and feels like you're going to die, and when you come out, it's like you're a new person. And she goes, I think it would really be very profound for you after going through the dark room. I'm like, all right, cool, I'm in. I said, when is it? And she goes, oh, we start around 3:00. And so it was morning. I thought, all right, cool. I have time to get some sleep and go do that. Well, it was like noon and I still hadn't went to sleep. I had went into the little village and had breakfast and came back and ate some food and still wasn't tired. And so I laid on the bed and I started getting like a really, really, it felt like my lower back was hurting. And I was like, oh, wow, maybe I've just been so not moving around, not doing anything. That's why my back is sore. And it took me about maybe 15, 20 minutes to, again, click into what I had realized the first time. Oh, maybe this is a sensation that my body needs to process. And so I sat there and just sat with it and observed it and was really paying attention to where my back hurt and how deep it was and where the edges of it were. And it just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Eventually it went away and I fell asleep. So it took me about 30 minutes to process that. And it was quite painful when I started. And then there was nothing else from that. And I realized, wow, that was just my body. That was where it needed to do its release. And so I did. And I was able to fall right to sleep. I woke up about 40 minutes later and felt really, really good, which I was super shocked. I thought I would sleep until she came and got me. But woke up about 40 minutes later. And then a couple hours after that, she came and got me, and we went out and did the Temazcal, which was crazy. That was intense.
Walk? I've never done one. So, I mean, in itself, it sounds like a transformation. How long is it? What do you experience while you're doing it? And then afterwards, what were the sensations you're feeling?
Yeah, we could do a whole nother podcast on that. Yeah. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version.
Sure.
And then I've shared my notes with, anybody that wants to read it. It's funny. My writing of the experience of the Temazcal is as many words as it was as the second dark retreat. So it was almost like there was 3 experiences, even though, kind of lumped in with the second one. But essentially, we're in Mexico, just above Guatemala. It's right on the ocean. And when I went, it's their hot season. So it was pretty uncomfortable and super humid, kind of like Florida right now. And anyways, I was like, wow, we got there, we're sitting outside, and they're like beating on these drums and kind of doing these mantras as people are filing up the hill and getting ready for this. And I said, just to be funny, I leaned over to her. I said, well, it's working. I'm already sweating, because we were just like drenched just from the heat and the humidity. But they did that for about an hour, and they kept stoking the fire that had these rocks in it. And they're basically heating these rocks up. And then he stops beating the drums, comes over, gives us a conversation about, you're going to feel some really intense pain. He says, like, at the point where maybe some of you are going to feel like you're going to die. But the truth is, you're not. You're going to be fine. And this is a way for you to, his words were, witness the face of Satan and, die and come back. Basically this rebirth of coming out from that as a new person, and you'll set your intentions, and that's what we'll do. And so, he was speaking in Spanish, and there was a translator that was kind of just translating it. I didn't have any more details than that. That was it. So we crawled in, kind of started around the edge, and then just kept looping. People kept looping in until it got to right around the rock. So we let all the women go in first. So they were kind of on one half, and then the men were on the other side. And I was on the outer edge in the back. The first thing, he kind of has a little bit of a speech. They bring in they brought in 2 rocks, and the rocks were kind of gray, little bit of red on them. Didn't look too much, not too crazy, but just, you could tell they were hot, but not glowing or anything. And they pulled the thing down and made it dark, and they splashed water on it, and it instantly fills the entire, this little hut with hot steam, and you're already in 90 plus degree weather, pretty humid, and it's a dark thing that they've just stretched over bamboo. So it's warm in there. It's got to be over 100 degrees. And now they're splashing water on these hot rocks and creating the steam. But they did like a chant and sang and did these things for probably 15, 20 minutes. And then they flipped the edge open. And there's one other thing I forgot to share. One of the ladies brought her daughter in, who was really young. She could say mom, no other words. So she was pretty young, maybe 3 years old, 3 years old. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. And when he splashed the steam and instantly it got really hot, the little girl started to whine and moan, and she was saying, mama, mama. And he's like, oh, perfect. He goes, this is the mother's energy. We'll just go with what's happening in here. And so he didn't stop anything, or just, he kept doing it. We hit the water, or hit the rocks with the water 2 or 3 times, and it just got more and more intense. Well, by the end of that mantra, they pulled it up, and then that lady actually wanted to give everybody that was in the shelter, the Temazcal gift. And so she sang another one, and it lasted maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And then he talked some more, and then she got out with her baby. And the guy that got the rocks went out and got 2 more, brought them in, pulled the tent down. Same experience. Just this time it was a little hotter because now there's 4 rocks in there. The rocks were gray, but there was like some really glowing red on them that you could see when it was dark in the Temazcal. Splash water on it, hot again. Nothing unbearable. It was really warm, and I thought, in my head, I thought, oh wow, cool, I survived. It wasn't bad. I can handle this. And then they pulled the lid open, and it was probably the edge of what I could really handle at that point. And so when they pulled the opening, you could kind of feel like it was trying to create some airflow through there. And a couple of the people actually walked around outside and opened it up just a little bit. So we had some cross ventilation. I was like, ooh. And then he started talking, and it was extremely high EQ, like extremely high EQ. I'm like, oh my God, this guy, like literally he looks like this, a leather football because he's in the sun 24/7, and he's speaking just this amazing amount of clarity and understanding. And I just thought like, oh wow, this guy really gets it. And he gets it because he's put himself in the fire, again and again, basically going through these crucibles, which is where we learn everything. We learn everything in the midst of the suffering, not after the suffering. It's in the fire of the life and the challenges that we have. And I thought, wow, it's amazing that he has this amount of clarity from choosing to go into this and experience it. And so after about 40 minutes, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to get out. And I'm getting, uncomfortable. We're just sitting on the ground, and the ground's hard as it's a rock basically. So there's no padding, no nothing. And, I was getting pretty uncomfortable. I thought, I just want him to be quiet so we can get out. And then all of a sudden, the guy that does the rocks gets out, puts the flaps down, the 2 little flaps that were up, and starts putting in more rocks. So I like leaned over to this guy that was next to me, and I said, are we doing another round? He goes, oh yeah, we do 4. We're just halfway done.
Whoa.
And at that point, I literally just like everything in me dropped. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm miserable. I thought we were done for the last 20 minutes of this guy talking. I was ready to get out. And so this time they put in 3 rocks, and they were glowing red. Like they were just like lava rocks. They had been in that fire pit for a long time, getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And now they were just these three glowing rocks, plus the other 4 that were in there from the other 2 rounds. And so they pulled the shade down, and when he hit it with the water this 3rd time, it literally felt like it sucked the wind right out of my lungs. I was like, and then you kind of have to like close your mouth and like really concentrate on your breath to get your awareness back, or your equilibrium of like, okay, am I actually dying? And about 2 or 3 minutes into this, they started chanting. And one guy that spoke English said, it's a good day to die. And essentially he meant like die to whatever we were releasing and, rebirth to this new thing. And all of a sudden everybody started chanting that it's a good day to die. And so while they were doing that, he hit the rocks with the water a few more times, and it just got hotter and hotter. And it was, honestly, I've never experienced anything like that. Like it was the hottest I've ever felt. And you think that you can't handle anymore. And then when they start chanting that mantra, it's like this another gear that you have. You're like, yeah, I guess I'm going to figure out what I can handle and what I can't handle. And the funny thing is, in my story about it, knowing that there was a 4th one coming, I was like thinking, okay, maybe I can only make it 3 and I'm going to get out. But here's 15, there's probably 15, 20 women and 30 guys. And I'm like, if none of the women get out, I'm not getting out. So it was literally very vain. If it was all guys, I would have got out. I would have just got out. But it was like, I'm too proud to like give up. And I'm so glad I didn't, because the 4th round was much worse, like much worse. But again, like that is where the change happens, is in the middle of the very worst part of it. And then on the other side of it is where you actually see the results of the change that happened in the middle of it. And so, yeah, the 4th experience was a lot hotter. And thank God he like only talked for about 5 minutes after it. And it was basically, when you get out, set your intention at the door. And then when you crawl out, that is, you know, your intention for what you do. And we waited for all 15 women or 18 women to go and do that. So it's still, you were in there for another half hour, just as people were setting their intention and getting out, and doing that. And so, yeah, the entire experience took us to sunset, and then we went down to the ocean and jumped in the ocean. It was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. I was delirious for sure until I jumped in the ocean. I had slept like 40 minutes in the last almost close to 80 hours. And,
Right.
but it was great. I went back to the room, fell asleep, and slept like a baby, and woke up the next day as happy as could be.
Do you feel comfortable sharing your intention?
Yeah, it was that I died to, like, for me, one of the things that I've always struggled to share is my pain and suffering from a place of not like cleaning it up. So it's strategic vulnerability, to just be completely vulnerable in all scenarios, all situations, like no mask. And so that was my intention, that was how I would live my life moving forward. And so since then, I've practiced that in a way that I'm sharing very publicly, things that I struggle with, things that I believe, where I would have never done that in the past. And now I'm doing it daily.
That's awesome. A couple of things you mentioned too with the Temazcal, you said?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm glad you explained it to me, because I heard you say it and I was just like, I don't know what that is, but I'll ask Matthew later. But I'm like, oh, actually, we should talk about it. So I'm glad you went over it. Yeah. 2 things. The power of community. I think people don't understand how valuable community is and how much we've lost like fellowship and people, especially in digital ages. And this isn't a generational thing. I mean, anybody, any age can lose touch with that. Just not understanding the power of having people around you, people that make you better, people that support you, people that make you feel vain feelings towards, like, you know, encouraging you to do something even further than what you'd be capable of doing by yourself.
Yeah.
And then something else you mentioned is, I mean, just the kind of a feats of strength, like how much in our lives we're just not faced with real adversities anymore. Like we have perceived problems, but problems are not actually what the challenge could be that lets us rise to a new level. And doing these types of experiences is really what set me on this path. Was like, I can go to the gym, I can get stronger, I can read things and get better, like intellectually. But there's a certain part of the soul and spirit that can only be tapped in whenever you're doing these types of experiences, where you don't think you can go on any longer, where you don't think you're actually capable of doing this. And like you said, the actual transition, the transformation that occurs is in that moment. You're going to experience the benefit of it afterwards, but the learnings and everything you're gaining from it is actually happening in that moment. And to withstand that and to go against like the fire, the heat, all these different things, the fear of like being in the dark, that's what makes you the person that you're actually trying to be later on in life, right? Like that makes everything just so much more bearable, put things in a whole different perspective, and a new perception emerges. So knowing all that, one thing, but I'll let you go ahead. I saw you're going to.
Yeah, I was going to say the Temazcal, it was so hot and so intense that it became an inner experience. Like you literally, it didn't matter what anyone else thought. It didn't matter who was sitting next to you. In the beginning, as we all started sweating, everybody's kind of trying not to bump each other. And, it was like everybody was good. In fact, a couple of times I put my hands on the dirt and because they were sweaty, they got all nasty. I kind of brushed them off on my shorts. I'm a little OCD. And so I'm like kind of cleaning them off. And then by the end of the second round, everybody's just like drenched in sweat. And now you're scooting around on the rocks as your legs are all muddy, your hands are muddy. It doesn't matter. And then by the third one, you're bumping each other and everybody's like, doesn't matter. And so it was external then. And by the time the end of the third round, the fourth round, nobody matters anymore. And they all don't care about each other. Like you're in this zone of like, all right, I'm in survival and I'm seeing what I'm capable of. And it was in the journal that I did afterwards, there was a couple of those lessons that like many times, like we think we can't go any longer. And all that is our voice that wants us to remain the same or mediocre. And it's at that moment that all of a sudden you realize you can handle so much more. Well, then that shows up everywhere else in your life. Now, what I'm getting done in the last 2 months, I didn't know that I was capable of doing that, but now I know I'm capable of way more than what I think I am. And I can push myself and challenge myself each and every day based off of, I know I'm not going to be able to do it at that level, but I know that I can handle way more than what I think. And so instead of shutting myself down when the voice of familiarity keeps me, oh, this is what you believe you're capable of, I know it's not true. And so I don't listen to it like I used to, where before it used to feel like a fact. Now I know it's just a story and I keep going.
That's powerful. Separating the narrative that is, everyone's got this narrative that goes on. And I had a similar experience. Like I can hear the narrative now, but now I almost take it. And this was taught by David, was like, take that thought, put it in a bubble and just look at it. Like that's not actually you. That's just the thought that you can extract yourself from at any given time and just know that it's just a thought, but that you're capable of way more. And by doing that, the separation has just been extremely impactful in my life. Anytime I'm feeling discomfort, I know that discomfort's normal. It's my body's job, my brain's job to protect me, or at least to try to, because like it doesn't know what kind of perceived threat I'm dealing with. Right. It doesn't know if it's the end of me or just this little bump in the road, right? It's going to tell you the same thing. It's going to shout at you like, stop doing this. What are you doing? Get out of here. But we don't have to always listen to that voice. Now, maybe sometimes it's useful depending on what life and death situation you're in. But I think that we've grown so accustomed to just listening to, oh, that's discomfort. I shouldn't do that. Or I don't want to perceive through this because it's too hard on me. And if you can start to entertain that, especially, entrepreneurs, people in these high stress environments, the ability to down-regulate your nervous system and to do things more efficiently and effectively without actually letting it get to you. And not experience heart attack and stress-induced things. Like it's just so game changer versus intellectually approaching it or tactically approaching it, right? And I want to know, this is one thing I really want to, because you've got some great journaling. Like, I said I didn't see the new stuff, but I've been watching the things you've been putting out. And like Monika's sharing with me things. So like I'm seeing the depths of knowledge and wisdom you're bringing. So I will encourage everybody, it'll be in the show notes. We'll have the links to all the journals, the blogs, and follow along with Matthew's journey as he continues. What are some things either for you or just maybe generalizations that you can make for anybody out there? What are some perceived truths that we accept that you realized are completely false?
Yeah, I can't handle anymore. We think that, this is like, I think this is going to be the end. And one of the crazy things, I've tracked my sleep and my stress and exercise and everything with that Aura Ring for the last several years. And since the second one, my stress level is like at the lowest and it doesn't ever go up or down. It's like just stays down there. And I'm like, oh, wow, like something physiologically has changed in how I'm adapted and how I'm handling stress to the point where my body doesn't really register it like it used to. And I've noticed that, like, I just haven't had a bad day in the last 2 months. And that doesn't mean everything's worked out. Many times it didn't, but it just doesn't create this level of like where my body goes through that fight or flight from these perceived experiences. So that's one. What else? I don't know. I'm drawing a blank. I don't think I can think of anything else at the moment.
That's all right. That's why you've journaled and you've got all the, the wisdom shared and all, like, it's public now. So people can actually download that at any time, read up on it, and follow along on like new discoveries. Because part of the integration process with journeys like this, for anybody who's been a part of it, they know that it's not just the day after. It's not during the experiment. I mean, this is like a 6 month to like a 1 year integration that's taking place. And you don't even know what's going to occur. You could have in 4 months this big download, this big unlock. And that's what is so weird for people, especially me. I'm a reformed control freak. Okay. Like I really like to control things, or at least I did. And then I started to surrender to things. And when I went into my experiences, I was like, what's going to happen to me right after the day? And I was very much systematizing the process. Like I wanted to know. And they're like, no, just like, it's going to be 6 months. You're going to notice things, but everyone's experience is different. And I like refused to like accept that. And then when I experienced it, I got it. So I think there's a bit of letting go that has to take place and be okay with the unknown.
Yeah. The one other thing that I've noticed is I'm just way more focused. So I get a lot more done in the same amount of time, where before I used to go, oh, I have ADHD, and I go down these rabbit holes, and I do that, but not near at the level that I did. And it wasn't something that I intentionally was trying to change, or, it's just, I accepted that that's a little bit of a struggle that I have. And to be honest, in the last 2 months, I don't have that struggle. It's like whatever the belief was that was creating that, I shed that belief, and now I don't do that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about I'll do one more time in the end of November, beginning of December. It's only going to be a 3-day one, but he said that they're going to do an entire day of integration before the 3 days, and then an entire day after with me, because I've already experienced the other, done it the other way. And he said it would be very powerful. So I'm really excited about it, because so far the first 2 experiences were vastly different, and I got a lot from both of them. And the experience has been that I came out feeling different, totally. But then each week or 10 days or 2 weeks, it was almost like I felt like I was shedding old limiting beliefs, and this new person was emerging. And that's held true the second time too. It just, each week it gets a little better. It gets a little better. I don't feel like I've flatlined yet. And so I'm pretty excited to see what unfolds over the next couple months before my final one.
That's awesome. You look relaxed. You look changed every time that we get to see each other. There's always like a new Matthew emerging, which is nice to see. Yeah. There's like a different presence. So you're doing one final one. Is there a reason why you wouldn't do any more after this, or is this just the end of this chapter?
No, obviously it could change after the third one. I just don't have any planned. And really the way that these other ones came about was the first experience. I thought it was for November, December of 2024. And it was actually for November, December of 2025. And I had already blocked off the time. So I was like, no, I'm not. I want to go now. I don't want to wait another year. I'd already waited a year. So I found this experience, and it was so transformative. I'm like, I'm going to go one time in the middle too. And so I did that 6 month. And when I got out, the first time I bought the domain, The Darkroom Diaries, because I thought, what's going to happen over the next 12 months? I want to document it, because I've never really got to read and study what people went through. And so I've been very deliberate about that. The other thing that I did do this second one is I took in a little device that was record, that I could just talk and share my thoughts and what I was experiencing. And so then once I got out, I was able to take that and go through the notes of what I had shared and talk, and wrote them all down. And then I used that to journal from, which was quite powerful actually for me. So I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I'll do that this last time or not, but I'll take it with me and then see what, he recommends based off of his experience. And I'm there again to not try to create an experience. I'm there to surrender into whatever happens.
Nice. Well, I guess we'll have to do a follow-up again to see what the third experience is like. But I mean, anybody listening, whether a dark retreat is for you or some other experience is calling you, I think that the takeaway is just to make sure to continue to do these things. Find these experiences that seem challenging. Find these people that are aligned with an energy or a presence or an outcome that they've gotten in their life that you want to achieve. And not focus so much on the business component or like the goals and things like this. All that is going to get much better by doing these types of experiences. But if you guys do want more from Matthew in terms of dark retreats, because there's documentation out there, but I mean, it's still fairly new. And what I like about this, especially for people that don't want to do substances, they don't want to do ayahuasca, this is a very safe alternative, right? This is something that anybody can do. Yeah. And it could be an introduction to a whole new world of thinking, of possibilities. And it's not limiting you, based on if you're against substances and things like that. That's what really attracted me to this. There's a fear of the dark, but again, that's for me something to decide one day when it's the right time to do this. But where can people go? What would you ask them to do next in terms of what you have going on?
Well, you could give them my email. It's matt@buildgrowscale.com and then share that document. I've got hundreds of people have reached out to me and sent me comments, based on those journals and what I've shared. I would recommend everybody do it. I've tried all of the psychedelics and some of those experiences were difficult. Some were not. The thing that I found with each one of those, the integration was much harder than it has been with the dark, because a lot of those psychedelic experiences or plant medicines, you kind of have to try to interpret what you experienced and then make meaning of it and then try to integrate your life into the meaning that you made. Where the dark, what it feels like is that your brain sees the stories, your brain sees the memories. And when it created the memory, you were 5 or 10 years old. And so you had 5 or 10 years of life context in order to create that belief. Well, now when I witnessed that same memory or that same experience at 53, I have 53 years of life context, and the meaning could be totally different instantly. And so what I felt like is like the old PCs where as you live life, you create all these fragmented folders of this experience, this memory, this sensation, whatever. And in the dark, when you can see all of that, over the next 3 to 6 months, the integration was very gentle. But what it felt like, it was like when you were defragmented or you were fragmented and the operating system just started placing all the files back into the correct ones with a new context. And so the things that used to be a struggle for me are not a struggle at all anymore. And I didn't have to mentally go, oh, I'm not doing that anymore. I eat really good. I'm within a month of probably the best shape I've ever been in my life, at the oldest I've ever been in my life. And it's been very, very simple. It's unbelievable how when your operating system puts all those files back in with the life context compared to, the childhood that you formed it in, how much more gentle life is and how much easier it is. And you're not resisting things. It's really been beautiful.
It's a great way to put it. I never thought of it that way in terms of a 5-year-old only has 5 years to build context to the belief. Now it becomes effortless when you can look back and rewire that. That's a good way to put it. I mean, for me, it's just upgrade to a Mac because I'm not a PC guy anymore. So,
yeah, me neither. So,
yeah,
I would certainly do that.
Well, Well, Matt, thanks again for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and listen to your wisdom and see who you're growing into. And I'm always excited to see the next thing you have. So whenever you discover that and whatever you else have going on, we're here to support you. And we'll have the show links, everything here to get a hold of Matt. And find him on Facebook. And I'm sure you're on all the social platforms too. We'll include all those. But yeah, man, thanks for coming on again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a great conversation.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for listening today, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.